I realized I was too busy as the head broker for the company I was working for. And when I was doing the rescue work during Hurricane Helene, I realized I could not be a good, effective leader because my focus had now shifted to rescue work. So I decided to resign from that position. And it was actually my team that convinced me. They said, hey, we want you to start your own brokerage again, and we will help you run it. I always like to say everyone in my company is a reflection of me. They can all do the same job that I'm doing. So if I have to leave at a moment's notice because a hurricane's coming in, or earthquake, tornado, I can leave knowing full well they got it.
Have you ever wanted to invest in real estate but didn't know where to start or didn't have the time? Well, contact me directly at John Howard Realty, and I will come pick you up wherever you live in the plane, fly you here to Florida, help you navigate purchasing and managing your investment property, and get you home before sunset. We are back in the vacation rental business after selling our company 4 years ago. We have rentals available for you in Destin, 38, and soon again Naples. And when you come stay with us, you'll get some cool little gift bags. Rizzy has just killed this design. Of course, we got the birds on it, little hats. And go to our website, howardvacations.com. Use the code Birdman10 and you'll save 10% on your next vacation. If you're a real estate professional and you refer us a vacation home, we have an amazing referral program for that. And I hope to see y'all soon. Have you ever wanted to invest in real estate but didn't know where to start or didn't have the time? Well, contact me directly at John Howard Realty, and I will come pick you up wherever you live in the plane, fly you here to Florida, help you navigate purchasing and managing your investment property, and get you home before sunset. See you soon. All right, Paul Renner. Am I saying that right?
Renner.
Awesome.
You'll get it. By the time we're done, you'll get
start
it.
Start that over. Paul Renner.
Renner.
Paul Renner. Thank you for coming on the show. Really means a lot. I think I was telling you off camera earlier, I've been trying to get everyone that's running for office to come in here because, you know, I care about Florida, love Florida. I know you do too. And
I do.
Your history here shows it. And you're one of the big ones I wanted to get on here. But I'll give you just a quick little introduction for anyone that doesn't know exactly who you are. Maybe they don't know everything in your background. But you were state representative, Speaker of the House from 2022 to 2024. You're a Navy veteran, former prosecutor, business attorney, also a state assistant attorney since 1998. Is that correct?
Well, I was a prosecutor back in 95 to 98.
95 to 98. You were a naval officer, and you served in Operation Desert Storm and combat operations on the USS, how do I say that? McInerney. And then later again in Afghanistan in 2011. And you're a Florida native, if I understand right, Northeast Florida? Near native.
Born in Atlanta, moved here when I was 6 months old. So all the part I can control, I've been in Florida.
Close
yeah,
enough.
Away for school, away for naval training, and overseas in Afghanistan, obviously. But yeah, Florida's home.
And University of Florida, Levin College of Law, Bachelor of Arts in History, Davidson College in North Carolina. And you were elected in 2015 until the term limits in 2024.
Right.
That's
Speaker of those last 2 years.
Anything in here I missed about your background?
You got it.
Yeah. Well, to start off, I'd love to just know more about who you are, your background, like how you were raised, sports, and what led you to the military.
Yeah, so grew up, as I mentioned, born in Atlanta. We traveled around as preacher's kids. So we lived in Merritt Island, Vero Beach, moved to Jacksonville. My dad then started a church, non-denominational church, and so we kind of put roots down in Jacksonville. Graduated high school there. Played a lot of sports growing up. A lot of track, cross country, soccer. 1 year of football. I'm a little guy, but I played a year of football and just really enjoyed the sports. And then went away to college in Davidson College up in North Carolina. Came back. Got finished, and I was like, do I want to be a loan officer at a bank, or do I want to join the military? I said, I think I'm going to join the military. So went down to the recruiter and signed up and became a naval officer, and did that until just after I got assigned to my ship. That's when the first Gulf War was kicking off, 1991, with Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait, one of the original bad guys, along with Iran, and went over there and was navigating through mine-infested waters as an officer of the deck. Also led a small boat unit. So the ship, our ship with Pear-class frigate, it would be about a nautical mile off, and we would take a small EOD team over to these free-floating mines, and those two guys would get out, take some photos, take some intel, take what they could, put an explosive on it. We'd grab them in the boat, and then, if something happened, it happened to us, not to our ship. And so we would get them in the boat and go back, and did several of those mine destruction operations. In 91, came back, went to law school because it was a program where you get your warfare qualifications and you step into the reserves and drill as a reservist. So I had leadership there as an XO and a CO of unit. And then in 2010, got mobilized to Afghanistan. So 20 years apart, and went over to Afghanistan for about a year and led a team of men and women there. Now as an intelligence officer to stop foreign fighters. The unit was designed to get intel about foreign fighters coming into the battle space in Afghanistan to kill Americans. And so we handled that piece, was over there for a year, had another couple years when I got back, and then retired in 2013 from the military. But in between, from the active duty to the reserves in Afghanistan, I went to, as you mentioned, I went to law school, University of Florida, and was a prosecutor in Broward County. I was at a group today in Walton County. I said, it ain't Walton County in Broward County. So it's kind of like, Rush Limbaugh, one hand tied behind my back just to make it fair, because you've got the defendant, the defense attorney, which obviously are adverse to you, but you've also got the judges and the juries that are sometimes difficult. And so it was another one of those experiences of leadership under pressure, which in this race really sets me apart. I believe that the leadership experience, as well as the results in office from all the other candidates, especially those that are currently polling ahead. And so did that as a prosecutor and was selected to be a leader among my peers, whether it was trying, if a Miami Dolphins player down in South Florida got arrested, I'd have that case, or something that was in the news, like a really tough stalking case. I would get those, and I supervised those peers that came in with me. And of course, wound up before I left, it was 3.5 years, but trying violent habitual offenders. And so I know what that's like to have it on the line, and you gotta prove to that jury beyond a reasonable doubt and unanimously to put that guy away so he doesn't create another victim. And so had that, and had in mind at one day maybe I would get involved in public service in this other capacity. Retired from the Navy in 2013, and then a seat opened up in 2014 in Jacksonville, where I was living at the time, and ran in that race. Raised a bunch of money, got an endorsement by a guy, an unknown congressman named Ron DeSantis, my local sheriff, and we were just cooking along. Everybody, we looked like we were going to go unopposed, and a guy comes in with a ton of money. And we, battled it out till the very end, and we lost by 2 votes. Oh. And so you know what you do when you get knocked off a horse. You brush yourself off, get back on the horse. But I actually, got a phone call and said, hey, we like the way you handled yourself. And, I was over, I endorsed the guy and, did all that, and took the high road there. Because we had an opportunity to challenge, the election, because it was literally one vote. There was one guy that was a Master Chief Petty Officer from Vietnam. I just saw him the other night. His name is James Russian, and he's now in his 80s. And his absentee ballot signature didn't match what was on his voter registration from the time he was 18. Well, of course, I don't know about your signature, but I don't care how I sign my signature now. It's kind of a mess compared to how I did it when I was 18. I cared what my 3rd grade teacher thought about it. And so, that would take us down to 1 vote, but we didn't challenge it or anything. It's like it wasn't meant to be. And that was providence. I'm a believer, a Christian believer, and believe, that God had his plan there, because had I won that race, I would have never had the opportunity to be the Speaker of the House. I would not be sitting here running for governor, talking to you today. And so, we have to, my sermon for the day is you have to act in faith and obedience for whatever God's called you to do. He determines the outcomes, and that's what we're doing. And so, 10 years, 9.5 years in the legislature. And the way the speakership works is you're like the head football coach or the guy that is the leader of that chamber. You pick the committee chairs, sub chairs, who's on what committees, and you have to gain the trust of your colleagues. And I had, in that circumstance, the existing speaker that was really, a lot of the establishment types that see the world a little differently than I do, that were working against me. So I wasn't supposed to be the speaker. And so I've been in this David and Goliath battle before when it comes to running for office and being told you're never going to make it. And, we did, obviously. And my determination as a former military guy is focus on the mission. We have too much ego, too much arrogance, and too much politics in politics, even on the Republican side. We have too many people that get into office and they're all about self-promotion, self-enrichment, and having fun, and they forget about we the people. And so just like this governor's a unicorn in leadership, I have realized in my time in public office that I'm one of those anti-establishment unicorns that happened to fall into, through God's grace, and fall into this position, and we made the most of it. The governor recently called it, the 2 most productive years of any legislature anywhere, anytime, which is a nice compliment because, and James Madison called it the session of the century because we, knocked down universal school choice, ended DEI, did constitutional carry, heartbeat protection, pushing back on ESG, things to protect cops and protect veterans, across the board, just a laundry list of big conservative wins for both of those 2 years that I was in office.
If you're liking the artwork in the studio, it's all available on johnhowardart.com, where all profits go to charity. We also sell really cool pillows, coffee mugs, and little tote bags that are great for going to the beach. We also got different shapes of pillows. This is one of my favorite ones. It's also great for a pillow fight with my little nieces and nephews. But if you want a sign print, send me a message. We'll get it worked out. Or if you have a fundraiser for your next event and you want to print, send me a message and we'll send it to you for free so you can raise some money for your next event, charity, nonprofit, whatever it is. Thank you. You know what I like about your resume? It's not one of a politician. Like if you look at what you've done in your career, it's been basically just service your whole time. Prosecutor, Navy veteran. How many years total in the Navy?
23 active in reserve, yeah.
So you never even went into politics until after, your military service, and you're not one of these career politicians who just came in, in their 20s or 30s, and they've been doing that for 30, 40 years.
Yep.
It's really a life of service.
Yeah. And we know, and you're a veteran, we need veterans to step up. And again, what I love, love a country, service above self are 2 principles that every veteran has, but it's also that focus on mission. We wear one uniform, we go after the bad guys. There's no, we're unified. We don't have time for, your personal, issue or your ego issue, is you focus on the mission and get the job done. And when you do that and you're one team, like the movie 300, one of my favorite movies, is you're unstoppable. And I told the members, if we stand united, there's nothing we can't do. And we just knocked down, like home run derby, one conservative win after another in those 2 years. And leadership matters. Right now they've passed, I think, 15 or 16 bills the whole session, normally 150 or so. And not that you don't want quality over quantity. They don't have a budget. They haven't put a single thing on the ballot to reduce $1 of property taxes. Governor's been talking about it for a year and a half. And so it really does matter who's in leadership. And if you've never run a lemonade stand as a leader, you've never led anything, how in the world are you going to step in as governor of the state of Florida and do the job? If you've been in office for a number of years and you've never once stepped up and had a win for conservatives, you've never, done anything in the fight to beat the left, how can we expect you to be a fantastic governor when you get into that role if you've always been about kind of taking care of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is that kind of where the Speaker of the House has a lot of leadership skill set and like kind of directing the House and getting these bills passed? And
exactly.
I don't know much about what Speaker of the House does, but if
it's in the Speaker in Florida, you pick everybody basically. And so now I did in the Speaker, I picked my committee chairs, and if they wanted to hear a bill or not hear a bill, they heard it. That's what they did. It wasn't like a dictatorship. Is I tried to put good people, leaders, real leaders in place who had good judgment, and their judgment might be different than mine. There were times when people would try to come in the office and say, hey, Speaker, can you help me hear this bill? What did you talk to your committee chair? And, that's how the process is supposed to work, because all of us, every member of the legislature knows more about something than the rest of us. That's just a fact. That's just life. You know something, you're an expert on things that I have no idea about, and vice versa. Everybody knows something to a higher level than the rest of us. And so you got to let that process work. But what the Speaker can do is put those priorities up, like universal school choice, protecting kids from online harms, online pornography, addictive social media platforms, ending DEI, pushing back on ESG, protecting life, parental rights, constitutional carry, litigation reform to save our insurance market and try to bring down those costs. All those things were things that, Paul Renner worked on, spent hours along with our sponsors. We'd have sponsors to push that across the finish line. And as Speaker, you've got a lot of strength and a lot of ability because you're doing the budget, you're doing all the other bills to get things you want across the finish line and to the governor. And I had the benefit of being philosophically very aligned with the governor who wanted to do a lot of those big things as well. And that's just a list of part of them, but those are some of the things I personally got involved in while I was speaker. And so it was a great experience, getting things done. Because my frustration before I ran for office is all these guys they're all campaign conservatives. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, but they're not true believers. They get in office, it's like, maybe I get something done, maybe I don't. I just want to get reelected and stay up here. And that's what you see in D.C. It's dysfunctional. Republicans share blame in that. They haven't voted for a balanced budget in years. And, they're not doing their job. They're too worried about fundraising. Now, there's a couple good ones. And you mentioned before we got on, I think Congressman Luna, I like her. She's going after insider trading. We can't get half of our delegation members to sign on to her discharge petition. And, one of my platform issues as governor is we're going to go after insider trading. If you're in office to make money and use your knowledge, your back knowledge to enrich yourself, you got to go. And so I really, praise her for taking a stand. I'm sure she's getting all kinds of heat for it, but that's what leaders do. And so, you need more people like that. And we have a lot of good people in the House and Senate. It's all about leadership. And if you got a bad leader, things just kind of bump along. If you got a good leader like this governor and like I'll be as governor, if you look at the two things we did in 2 years, think what we'll do in 8.
I always say leadership is everything. It doesn't matter whether it's business, whether it's, a nonprofit, whatever it is, leadership really matters. If you have a good leader, people will stay, people want to work, they want to go.
100%.
If you have a bad leader, I know you saw this in the military, same as I did. You have a great commander and everyone's like, man, I'm staying, I'm re-enlisting, it's great.
Run over broken glass for that guy.
And then the next commander comes in and it's just like the morale's down. People, they exit out of the military. Leadership is, especially in the military, it's either life or death.
It's life or death.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that about we need more veterans to get involved in politics.
Yeah.
Because a lot of veterans don't want to, but we bring a different kind of perspective.
Yeah. And as you know, the leader sets a higher standard. Like I need to go and put myself at more risk. I need to go and conduct myself with greater integrity, not less. It's not, and too many people get in politics and they think they get a position and that means the rules don't apply to them anymore. Yeah. No. You have to raise the bar for the rest of your troops, for your shipmates or whatever your branch of service is, and bring them up. And people want somebody like that. People want to rally behind a true leader that wants to make the state or the country better. That's what we'll do.
I always say this too about the president, but it applies to the governor as well, especially the governor, because the governor is the chief of staff for the National Guard.
Yeah.
Commander in chief, not chief and staff, commander in chief. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. That literally, even in the state guard for us, commander in chief is the governor, and it's hard. I think it can be limiting if you don't have that kind of government service, like the military. Being a prosecutor, like how you were, is like, how are you expected to lead a military unit if you've never led military?
Exactly. And the voters agree. I'd be the third veteran in a row, going back to Rick Scott, obviously Governor DeSantis, and then me. And that's a former veteran to serve as governor. So people understand that veterans, put the service above self. They put the state above their own ego, their own self-interest in general. We've got some bad eggs that are veterans, obviously. We've served with them. But in general, that's what we expect out of our brothers and sisters in the military is a higher standard, a real love for what they do and a love for the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And 23 years of service proves that. If you wanted to get rich quick, you wouldn't have done 23 years in the Navy.
Not at all.
And you wouldn't have went, the state representative route and nothing like that.
The prosecutors as like the cheapest, poorest lawyer in America.
Yeah.
Your state prosecutor.
You brought up Congresswoman Anna Luna. She actually told me this years ago. But she was like, because I asked her, I was like, man, what is going on in D.C.? Like, why can't nothing get done? Like, why aren't the Republicans making this happen? And she goes, there's probably only about 25 to 27 real Republicans out there. Everybody else is just self-interest. They're kind of just in between, and they're really just kind of, looking at themselves. And when I love following this Instagram page. I think it's called Political Tracker or something. But it's an Instagram page where they post all the politicians' traits. One of them is actually called Pelosi Tracker. And they built an AI system around where whatever she buys, your algorithm will buy automatically as well. And the people, they crush it. They'll be up like 80%, 100% on their stocks.
Like Warren Buffett. except she's doing it on insider information.
I think she actually did higher than Warren Buffett. I'm pretty sure by like
Unbelievable.
leaps and bounds.
Yeah. Ought to be in jail.
But it's so obvious, these politicians, when they'll make these massive buys, 100 grand here, $1 million there, and then 2 months later, oh, it's up 120%. It's like,
must be great at stocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
And you sit on, let's say, whatever committee it is that you oversight.
You just knew what was going to happen before it happened.
And then that stock you buy.
Hard. Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that hasn't been common sense enough to where it's just like, nope, you can't do this. And the thing is, I think, unfortunately, even if Luna passes that bill, they're just going to have one of their family members doing the stocks for them.
Right.
There's just, unfortunately, a lot of corruption like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I wish our politicians could do better, and then all the gaslighting that goes with it. It's super disappointing. Is that something you could pass if you become governor, or does that require like the House?
Yeah, we have to have the House and Senate on board. But what I've called for the anti-corruption part, and we've got it all on voterenner.com for those that want to follow up and see what we're all about. An anti-corruption platform that says if you want to trade stocks, that's fine, but you've got to disclose it within 3 days. And if you don't, the value of that stock trade is your fine. And if you're doing it based on information that only you have, that insider trading knowledge, which is Pelosi and frankly a lot of Republicans, then you're coming home. You're recalled. You're subject to recall because people are sick of this. People are sick of people who are self-interested in office. And we need people like the founding fathers. We need people like our military heroes over the centuries of our existence who put themselves in harm's way, who put themselves out there for us, for the greater good, and for people that they'd never meet, who could never thank them for their service. And the people that are in there for, self-promotion and self-enrichment, come home. We don't want you anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got to get the right people in office, especially when it comes to being the governor. There's just, I think there's just so many self-serving people that want to get in office. And then I also see it with the fundraising. When I see people raise crazy amounts of millions of dollars, I'm just like, what are you going to use that money for? Like, do you really need $100 million to run your, campaign? Like, it just makes me wonder a lot. And then you'll see like the corruption stuff that happens, with like politicians up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, you went to office at this amount of money and now 2 years later, I think 30, 40 million.
Your net worth has gone up 800% in 5 years. Yeah.
And honestly, I probably wouldn't even notice it if the country was running great, but it's not.
It's not.
It's not running good at all. It's a broken system, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So as governor, how much does that impact the rest of America? Like that you can do?
I think it's huge. I mean, you look at DeSantis during Biden, and if we have the misfortune of a Democrat in 2028, Florida has, and beyond that, and I get this from my colleagues when I was a speaker, my other speakers around the country, and you meet, and they're always asking what's Florida doing, because Florida has really led the way. We have been the free state of Florida. We've got the swagger that Texas used to have. We were really the number one state among Republican states, and a lot of these governors just sit back and do whatever comes to their desk. We've leaned in, and I've told groups like I did today here, over in Walton, and that I'm going to lean in. I did that on Amendments 3 and 4, on issue of school board races, things that weren't in my job description to really lean into. That's what you need in a governor, is somebody who's going to do that and set the stage for other Republican states. And if you look at what's happening in D.C., President Trump's picking up a lot of the stuff that we did when I was speaker, ending DEI programs, pushing back on ESG. All of this stuff is parental rights bills that are moving through that are copying what we did 2-3 years ago when I was speaker.
The DEI stuff, I didn't even realize how much that actually infiltrated Florida. But I think people just didn't realize, like, it was being put in like school books. Like, who would ever think someone would do that? Then I would see it on social media, like, families are getting mad, but people really didn't know it was even going on. But it was just that whole DEI era with Biden and all that. I mean, we're going to look back in time and history at that and just be like, what was going on with that? Being here, like, you're right. We got that swagger that Texas had. I'm originally from Texas. I love my state of Texas, but
great state.
It's awesome state. People there are great, but man, they got some bad actors over there who are really just been going real blue on that state. But I always say like Florida and Texas are basically the Alamo now in
You're
America.
right.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it was not good. So the point of all that is you cannot turn Florida over to anybody other than somebody who's going to lean in, who's got that leadership under pressure, who actually can show up and get it done. And again, everybody's going to tell you, I'm going to do this, 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 and that, but can you get it done?
Yeah.
And I've got the receipts to prove that, unlike, people before or after, I know how to get it done. And I'm going to focus on the mission, and I'm not focused on, live streaming, myself every day to try to audition for vice president or something like that. This is very, very important, and I'm dedicated to putting Florida first. That's what we're campaigning on.
Yeah, results. Not just social media talk.
No nonsense,
and,
less talk, more action.
Someone messaged me earlier about you. They did a podcast with you. I forgot his name. I shared the video, but he said your track record as Speaker of the House is like unmatched compared to anyone else about getting things passed and done. And I think that's what you're talking about. You used to pass like 100-something bills when y'all were in
yeah, I
session.
mean, it's typical with the kind of bills we pass. We did stuff that people had not been able to get done, that conservatives always said, oh, we want this, and you campaign on it, but it never really gets done. And you realize, having been in the process, there's a lot of great people over there, but unless the leader is really committed as a conservative to put it all out there and push for it, that's not happening.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about State Guard.
Yeah.
Because that's actually how you and I met the first time about a year and a half ago over in Flagler County.
Yep.
It was real brief. I still remember you had this really cool tie on. It had a bunch of little Floridas all over it. And I was like, cool tie.
I wear that all the time. And I went down and shook everybody's hand. So I remember meeting you.
Yeah. I remember that. And he had the cowboy boots on. I was like, this guy's a politician. I was like, this guy's cool.
Not your typical politician. But I'm anti-establishment, even though I've been in office. But
I know we were talking earlier off camera about you were one of the big supporters to kind of get the State Guard funded and going during that time.
Right. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, the governor was calling for it, and, it was kind of snickered at a little bit. But what people don't realize, that are probably listening, is the National Guard, is this funding out of the federal government. They set the number of billets, the number of, men and women that can serve, how many you can have. And that's been fixed in time from the 1980s or whenever it was. So, for example, New York, which we've passed in population, has far more National Guardsmen allocated to them than we do. So they get more funding to have that. We don't have that. We're behind because they've never adjusted that for population growth. Stuck back in 1980s, kind of land, when we were like the 10th largest state, not the third largest state. So I was supportive because you need to supplement that. These are great men and women like you that have done things in life. They're volunteering their time. I mean, it's a true, make you feel good kind of public service to step in and say, hey, I'm going to step out there and put myself at risk following a hurricane, or to protect against sex trafficking, or, interdicting, illegals or people running fentanyl, into our state. Whatever it is, they use their specialty they learned in the military and law enforcement to get after bad guys, support our public safety, support our state in time of need. And so, yes, and the funding of that, it created just before I became speaker, but it was in jeopardy of not being funded, because just a lot of people were like, what is this? And as a military guy, I understood, well, this is pretty important. If we do it right, we can have something really to be proud of. And so as governor, I can tell you, we will absolutely have a State Guard, and we will continue to prioritize that and win over those legislators that fund it, say, hey guys, we need the funding to make this happen, because we want good quality men and women to support our state in time of need.
Plainview Beef Company, owned by my veteran friends over in Kansas. I met them during Hurricane Helene through their nonprofit called Cal Team 6, where they fly out beef to natural disaster zones. They make these super tasty meat sticks that I take everywhere with me on the go. On your next checkout, use the code Birdman. I'm telling you, you'll love it. The flavor is there, the protein's there, great for the carnivore diet. Go use the link below and use code Birdman. Yeah, because I mean, Florida has so many veterans, and it's just like you have all this talent that's not being used, and then you have the State Guard, and it's just like, I mean, especially like here in the Panhandle, 100%. We got so many former special operators here,
the best
people that can still go get the job done, but have the State Guard and they can go do it. They might not, they've already done their federal time, but in the State Guard, it's almost, I want to say, waste of talent. But with the State Guard, you have them all there. They can do so much good for the state, and we've proven it. Helene in North Carolina, Kerrville over in Texas, and even a lot what people don't even realize the State Guard does, especially on the special missions unit side is helping law enforcement with all the illegals, dangerous criminals. We actually wrapped up over 100 dudes last year.
That's great.
All throughout Florida.
That's fantastic.
I mean, everything from like, murderers, rapists, whatever they were. And we just, assist local law enforcement with that. So a lot of good.
And you could be spending some good beach time or out fishing on the weekend. And so this, and it's I think, and again, it's why I'm probably running for governor too, is we're hardwired for service.
Yeah.
Our veterans, our law enforcement, they're hardwired for service. And, they get out a little bit and it starts, itching. They got to scratch that itch to go back in and help people, and run to the trouble when everybody's running from it. And that's what makes the State Guard special.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I love serving. There's just no better feeling about it. Like, I'm a real estate guy now, and I love the real estate. It's fun, but it's a different type of emotion when you're serving, and you're actually you see the impacts with your neighbors here in Florida. I always like to say the one that got me was in Steinhatchee during Helene. We rescued an elderly lady out of her second floor house, and I just made me so happy. I just felt so good. I'm like, this is why I do this. It's not the $160.
No, it's not that.
That's
it's not the awesome pay. That's right.
It's not that, or sleeping in
the bad food.
Four dudes sleeping in a truck during a hurricane.
Smelly.
Hey, you go to sleep, I'll drive, swapping off.
3-4 hours of sleep or whatever. Yeah.
It's rough, but it's just, that's what veterans do.
That's what veterans do.
We love to serve. And if you give us another opportunity to go serve, we're going to go do that in the 100%. State Guard. People love it. We won't get into all the drama of the State Guard. I told you about that. You become governor. I know you'll come in there and just clean some house a little bit and
absolutely
right the ship.
Top to bottom, you got to look at everything when you come in as a new leader and audit the heck out of everything, whether it's our election system or the State Guard, and make sure you got the best leaders in office and in positions of trust.
That's a good point, because it starts with the governor, right? But the governor has to have a good team, because he can't be everywhere through the state. He can't be ahead of every department, and appointing the right leaders at those positions is really going to make or break a governor.
Yep.
Have you already decided, I guess, who your team is going to be, or how would you, I guess, vet who you're going to put? Is it from your experience as being Speaker of the House?
Or? Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the same thing that I did, as Speaker, and it's difficult. You're saying, okay, who's going to be the chair of the healthcare committee that's going to oversee all the very important healthcare policy, or the healthcare appropriations guy who's going to decide, what monies go where. Same thing in all those State Guard. You want to have men and women that are at the top of their game, that are really in it for the right reasons, that are not, looking at a stepping stone to go out and do whatever. You want to make sure you're really attracting and hiring and vetting top quality people, and then let them do their job, which is what I did as Speaker. So I didn't know every bill that was moving through. I had those bills that I was pushing, the specific ones, but the chairmen are overseeing that. They know their area better than I do, and you turn them loose and let them do their job. That's the military. You got it, whatever your commanding general, whoever it is, your director, your top guy, and if it works right, and you've got good leadership, then all the way down, it just functions, and the information flow up and down. Everybody's one cohesive whole to get a lot done. In a united fashion.
Yeah, I mean, delegation is a big part of being a leader. You got to delegate to the right people. You also got to know when you got to fire,
Correct.
To people.
Sometimes you do.
I say this a lot to younger guys that are starting off in their entrepreneur, younger people, but it's just like, I had a problem with this when I first started business, but it was I didn't want to fire someone, because I'm like, well, it's harder for me to go find somebody else.
Right.
Then I got to retrain that person. I can fix this person.
And 6 months later.
That's when 6 months later, I'm just like, the mess is bigger now. Now I have to go find someone else. And I'm like, if I just would have fired that person,
that gut feeling's there for a reason.
And I think that's a big part also as being the governor is you have to know, be like, hey, you know what? You're just not the right person for this job. And this being a veteran, we get hired and fired all the time. Yeah. Me as a young sergeant, I got hired a lot and I got fired a lot, depending on what the mission was.
Yeah.
So it's just something that has to be, it's part of leadership. It's part of an experienced leader is knowing how to do that.
That's right.
Vision for Florida. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like there's a lot of people running for office right now. Everyone has very different visions on how they want Florida to be. What is kind of your vision going forward during your governorcy?
I'll break it from 30,000 feet and come down. So making Florida more affordable is going to be a day one, bringing down, those costs. keeping Florida safe as the only former prosecutor in the race, going after the bad guys, making sure we have safe streets, not like these blue cities and states that are, basically in chaos. And then also keeping Florida free, keeping the foot on the accelerator for our freedoms, all of our constitutional rights, this kind of thing, but also protecting against threats. So let me back up and say on affordability, it means lowering property taxes. We don't have a plan yet on the ballot, which I think is a failure on the part of the legislature to, the governor can't put it on the ballot. Legislature has to do that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But getting after that when I'm governor, if it doesn't get done this year, we're going to have a reduction in property taxes, a significant, reset in a way that works for everybody, for our police and fire and everybody else. But also getting after insurance costs, getting after electric bills, and resetting how we do power generation here to make sure it's the lowest cost, domestically sourced, reliable energy that works for everybody. And we can be confident and we're not going to have those blackouts or brownouts that you see in other states. Healthcare costs is the same. That's affordability. Safety, it's going after death penalty. We're going to have a 3-year limit on appeals. People serve an average of 30 plus years on death row. One guy that raped and killed a 6-year-old girl, 43 years on death row. It's a joke. And it's basically a slap in the face of the victims' families who grow old and die before they ever see justice for their family. And so we're going to get after that. Sex trafficking, the whole Jeffrey Epstein. I had this plan out before all of that extra stuff broke. It's happening right now in Florida. As bad as, and it's horrible what happened in Jeffrey Epstein. It's happening today where 100,000 kids, they estimate, a year are being trafficked in this state. And so we're going to go after that. We're going to use a state guard. I'd love to see the state guard get involved in taking those guys down. That's a just cause. That makes you feel good at night, getting those guys. And then, going against corruption. I mentioned, insider trading, recalling those guys if they engage in insider trading, this kind of thing, making sure we don't have influence into our Constitution from out-of-state billionaires or foreign billionaires who currently fund a lot of these citizen initiatives to change the state of Florida. And that kind of stuff to keep Florida free. It also means pushing back against this growth in these Sharia law enclaves now we see in America. That's not going to happen when I'm governor. We're going to, and I fought, and you'll remember this, the line was, we have to fight in the military. We have to fight them abroad so we don't have to fight them here at home. But we welcome them here at home. And so it was a huge mistake to allow people who have no intention to assimilate, who want you to assimilate at the edge of a sword or else into our country. And you see what's happening in Europe. Same with Chinese students. Look, you're not coming from a communist country, a totalitarian system into our state to study unless you have permission from that communist party. And that is a nice way of saying you're a spy. And we saw how they stole a lot of our research and intellectual property before in these Confucius institutes, they call them. And we did some legislation to get rid of those, but they're set up to try to steal and do whatever they can. They're our enemy. And so we have to be thoughtful about the threats to freedom, while we also lean into educational freedom, health freedom. And I've got a great record on both of those fronts as the leader that got things done.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how important Florida is to all of that, because Florida is such a big spotlight of America for these foreign countries. This isn't just some little small state kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of foreign people here, a lot of foreign businesses, Chinese, like you were saying, things like that. But yeah, it's concerning how many foreign countries are really trying to dig their hands, not only into America, but into Florida specifically. I mean, Florida, don't they always call Florida the swing state, or they kind of control the election or something like that?
We were the swing state, yeah. And we become more and more Republican because we just leaned into, being strong and principled. And so we've got a lot of people coming from out of state who want to live here because they love the free state of Florida. And I was a key architect in building it.
This is why I'm so passionate about doing this right now with all the politicians, because I go back and think, what if DeSantis wouldn't have won the first time? It would have been that previous guy, the one doing meth with the hookers and all that.
Face down naked in a hotel room doing meth.
Yeah, imagine if that would have been the governor during COVID. Florida would have been locked down. There would have been nothing going on. And that could have literally bankrupted my business. Could have bankrupted 100%. A lot of people.
And that's exactly the argument I make and before voters, I did it today at lunch, is you got to have somebody ready for leadership on day one. And I've got a lifetime of leadership under pressure, 23 years in the military, 2 wars, prosecuting violent habitual offenders, and then getting it done, leading the legislature with Governor DeSantis, but passing the bills. The legislature passes those bills. We do the budget. getting that done in partnership so that we built the free state of Florida. And so I'm not going to go backwards and allow anybody in to run our state that is not really leaning in to a Florida first agenda. Their agenda is self-promotion.
Yeah. Speaking on getting tough on crime, when you become governor, are you allowed to just say, hey, you know what, we're going to that 3-year term for the death penalty? Or is that something that has to get through all the red tape with the House and the Senate?
It's got to be passed. Yeah, it's got to be passed. So we passed a state constitutional amendment called Marcy's Law, which put a 5-year cap on it, but the courts are not picking that up. They're still letting people go 10, 15, 30 years. Over 30 years is the average for somebody on death row. So the governor or whoever that signs the death warrant is long gone, and then they have to pick it up and sign it affirmatively to make that happen. We better off not having it. If we're not going to really use it, it becomes kind of a joke if you're not going to actually let it go forward. So it really is disappointing to see that. And so the legislature then can pass a law saying we're limiting all appeals. This is after you've been convicted unanimously and all that stuff. That once you're convicted and put on death row, you've got 3 years to bring whatever appeals you want. And assuming that we did the trial right and you got all your due process and fairness during that trial, and there was no evidence hidden. I mean, you were guilty of that crime and deserve the death penalty. You get the death penalty. You don't get to sit there for 30 or 40 years while the families again and the friends and family, look and say, when are we going to get justice? It really erodes people's confidence in the system. And so I'll restore that.
That's good. Yeah. I think it's about corruption because it's money. When I got out of the military in 18, I actually went to law school, Ave Maria down in Naples. And I remember in crim law, they were talking about how much it costs to keep someone on death row every year on average. And this was in 2018. So obviously it's even more expensive now. But I think the average in America, I think it was America or Florida, I can't remember. It was like $75,000 a year to pay for this person to be on death row with medical, with food, just, whatever expenses. And then they went to California and they showed the California one and it was even like significantly higher. I think it was like $140,000, $150,000 a year that they spend on these people on death row. And I'm like, someone's getting paid. I always heard prisons were a big money business, but I think the wrong people basically prevented us from, doing these executions because look, if you've been caught red-handed on camera, you raped someone, you killed someone, it's like, why do we need to wait 10 years to get rid of this?
Bingo.
And you're right. And the family has to think about this for 10 years. They want that guy gone so they can move on with their lives.
Yep.
I would love to see that because in my travels throughout the world to a lot of countries that are super strict on crime, Singapore, Brunei, wherever it's at, it's like they don't tolerate it, and because they don't tolerate it, they don't have those problems. You can walk in the cities at night. There's no issue. Not worried about getting stabbed or mugged. And I really wish we could do that here in Florida. And it sounds like you're the kind of guy that can help push that in the right direction and get the House on board with it.
Yeah, and after all those crimes that they've committed, the taxpayers pay for free housing, free food, free health care for 40 years? I don't think so.
Yeah. When I see those blue cities and they show, oh, this person was literally arrested like 20, 30 times in the last 2-3 years. And I'm just like, how is this
Why are they out?
Why is this not common sense?
I know.
It blows my mind. One that really just kind of, I was so angry about it, but it was that poor little girl, the Ukrainian girl in Charlotte. Yeah. She got stabbed in the subway or the bus or whatever. And I was like, that guy had been in and out of jail so many times. That district attorney, I think it was a district attorney or a judge, had just kept releasing the guy. And I'm just like, I don't understand this. And I believe someone like that should actually be held accountable for releasing people like that.
Absolutely.
District attorney, judges, is that a problem for us here in Florida?
Well, it's still a problem in some places. The governor removed the lady in Orlando who was terrible, and they reelected her. So I will not hesitate to remove people from office that refuse to protect the community in that role. You need a prosecutor. I worked with a Democrat in Broward, but he was a tough on crime Democrat. That was, decades ago. But I don't care if you're a Democrat, but you got to enforce the law. And so those cases where they refuse to follow their oath, I'll remove them. No problem.
Yeah. And as governor, you don't have to have permission. You can just be like, hey, you're out of here.
That you can. That's correct. I don't need the House or Senate's permission to do that. I'll make the case. We'll write it up. This is why we're doing it, and you're gone. if you're not going to follow your oath of office.
And if they want to appeal it, they can do their own little investigation.
They can go to court and
waste
challenge
their
it or
time.
whatever. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's super important. That definitely needs to happen. It is kind of shocking when you look at crime numbers in Florida. I feel like I'm kind of insulated from it here in the Panhandle and down in Naples at the second home. I don't really see a lot of crime there, but you'll see certain cities that also tend to go blue in Florida, and you're just like, wow, like that's a lot of crime. And I just don't understand why we can't just go in there and just be like, nope, done. And
you would think the people that are voting that are at risk. I mean, the people in those communities are more at risk of being killed, injured, maimed, et cetera, than anywhere else. And they're voting to elect those kinds of people, those so-called Soros prosecutors, which are letting people out right and left, bad people. And so it's hard to comprehend why they don't understand and put two and two together that their city's ablaze, it's in chaos, and it might have something to do with the knucklehead that you elected in as your state attorney or your mayor or what have you. And you see Minneapolis as an example of that, where they're basically encouraging violence against ICE agents.
Yeah.
It's very hard to be upset and be depressed when you're looking at stuff like this and seeing nature and wildlife, and you get the sunlight on you get the beautiful sky, and especially here in Florida, you got all this. So I started realizing how much nature just made me happy. And then as a kid, I was always outside in nature, going hunting, going camping, hiking, whatever. And I kind of lost that when I was in the military. I didn't really enjoy that stuff anymore. And then watching wildlife and then taking photography of it, it just kind of gave me like a purpose, gave me a sense of pride. And then I could share what I was seeing with people, and sharing that happiness made me happy. And then that was kind of how I started donating it to charity and raising money for good to help people as much as I could. So I always say nature is where I refound myself and healed myself.
I got some questions for you from people from the audience.
Sure. Fire away.
This one's Jaden. He's actually a brand new young guy straight out of college. He's actually working for me in the real estate brokerage. His dad was my wife's supervisor in the Air Force. And amazing young kid. Him and his three brothers played football here in Crestview. They all played at the same University of Mobile together.
Oh, wow.
On the field at the same time.
That's awesome.
He actually just went to the NFL draft, and his other brother's going to the NFL draft right now. I mean, just impressive. So his question, he has two questions for you.
Okay.
Why do you think social media strips our humanity?
I do think it strips our humanity because we're having eye-to-eye contact. This is like human interaction right here. Your interaction on social media is, 500 people that you've never met before that liked your stuff, and that's fine, and especially for kids, it's devastating because they don't understand how to have real relationships. And so on every level, and I'm Jonathan Haidt is a guy who's talked about this and all the ways that social media is stripping humanity. He's exactly right. And what we need to be doing is getting off, for kids especially, is getting off our cell phones, going out on the ball field, scraping our knee, going out in the woods, going hunting, fishing, just doing stuff that engages your body, your mind, stresses you, challenges you, makes you work together as a team, makes you deal with frustration and failure and get yourself back up again, and not the cycle of addiction that they have used. They have figured out how to hack the human brain. So you get that dopamine hit when you scroll, the infinite scroll for the next puppy video or funny video. It makes you want to stay on forever and ever. And look, I've felt it before. You want to get on, I got to check my, my feed over here, see, if anybody's liked my stuff. It works against adults too, but for children especially, that's where I focus. If you're an adult and you want to get on social media, get on social media. But to his question, yes. I mean, especially for young kids, we don't let them drive under 16 because are their reflexes better than mine? Yeah. But is their judgment? No way. Can I beat that car coming out of the intersection? They just don't know yet. Their brains are still forming and they don't see the harm. It's like the frog that gets boiled 1 degree at a time in the water. Mm-hmm. They don't see that they're getting boiled in social media until it's too late.
Mm. All right. And then his second, kind of a follow-up to that, he asked, is there something you're planning on doing as governor to help change it?
Well, that was my big year 2 thing is I wanted under 16, if it meant it had to have 4 addictive features or like a personalized algorithm, had to have addictive features. It had to have the ability to upload and download video content, which you can see if it's a sexual predator, how that's a problem with your kid. And then the platform has to have a certain number of daily users that spend an inordinate amount of time online. There's evidence that there's people that are getting addicted. All of that stuff has to be true. And if it's not, you can get on the internet. Our bill didn't say you couldn't get on the internet, or a kid-safe friendly home program. All the platforms, all big tech had to do is take away one of those factors. Not to make it kid-friendly, make it a little bit more kid-friendly. And rather than do that, they were satisfied to addict kids, monetize them from, and you take addiction, children, and monetizing, it sounds like trafficking to me. And so they know, like Facebook knows internally, they've got documents saying this is wrecking the psychology of a lot of girls and boys, but it's wrecking their psyche because, they got the friends, or their friends are not part, and all the stuff that happens with social media that drives that psychological harm. They know that. They would rather not change a thing. And when they lobbied up, they put every lobbyist in town to stop our bill. And when it passed, then they wanted to challenge it in court, which they did. So far, we've won, but it'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. And the question is, does the First Amendment protect against addiction of children? Of course it doesn't. And as a veteran, I'm a huge First Amendment guy. I'm a Christian. You can be an atheist. I'm a conservative. You can be a left-wing progressive. That's what I fought for. That's your right as an American. You can shout it to the housetops. But addiction of kids is not protected. That's not the First Amendment. We don't say good content or bad content. So I already did something. What I like to do is see it, go from 14 to 16 and make sure we're keeping an eye on platforms that are putting those kids on anyway, violating the law.
Yeah. Was it Governor DeSantis that, I don't know if it was him that passed it or the House, but they for pornography in Florida?
That was me.
That was you that did that?
Yeah, that was HB 3. So my year 2 priorities, HB 1 was protection against addictive social media platforms. HB 3 was stopping online pornography. So right now you can be an 8-year-old boy and click, yes, I'm 18, and off you go. With stuff that, you can't buy in a convenience store. We're not talking about Playboy. We're talking about like really hardcore stuff that a little kid sees. Well, they're all kind of jacked up in the head at that point. And so you got to have some protection for youth. And then that's also how they get trafficked. A lot of these sites that convince them to, send a picture of yourself, like it's a girl or whatever. And then it's like, well, we're going to tell your parents, or we're going to put it out on the internet if you don't send another picture that's more graphic, or come meet us somewhere. So that's how these kids, a lot of them, in addition to runaways and others, get trafficked, because they get groomed and they get sucked into doing something that was a mistake. And now they're going to try to go the next level. They don't want to tell their parents, and it goes deeper and deeper.
I'm really going to highlight that. I did not know that was you that did that.
That was totally me.
I think that's so important for people to know, because the pornography is just, it's insane. It's everywhere. It basically is what's on Instagram and social media now, and OnlyFans, and it's not healthy. It's not Christian values. It's not good. It's destroying young little kids. Even when I go back to myself as a young kid, of course I was trying to get my hands on pornography when I was
You're a boy, right?
9, 10, 11, 12.
Right.
But like what that does to your psyche and all that, it's just not a good thing.
Yeah. And it's not a real relationship anyway.
Yeah.
And so they get this kind of very distorted view of what it's like to be married and have a family, and, love your wife when she's sick with the flu, or, not looking her best in the morning. That's not what pornography is, this kind of fake, view of love, which is not real. And so having, real love is sticking by somebody, like we talked about with the military. It's being there for them when it's not convenient.
Yeah. As a young kid, if I would have had access to the internet, I didn't have internet growing up, but if I would have had access to the internet, I would have been doing all kinds of wrong with it.
Sure.
And now it's just too accessible to young kids.
Yeah, totally unregulated. That's all. I'm just saying, got to protect our kids, man.
Yeah.
We don't let them smoke, drink, drive a car, work, get married. This is one other thing that they probably just need to wait a little bit and be kids.
Yeah. If you want to be a 20-year-old and do whatever you want, hey, good.
Free country.
Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But for, a 10, 12-year-old, it's not a healthy thing at all. Not healthy at all. Some more questions from people. I don't even know what this is, but someone told me to ask you about Amendment 4 in Florida to his opponents. Yep.
So Amendment 3 was a pot amendment. Amendment 4 was the abortion amendment. So we passed the Heartbeat Protection Act to say, when you have a heartbeat, then and there's exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother, all those things. And then so out-of-staters came in to say, we're going to have this radical, 40-week abortion, anything goes. A lot of places where it's been passed, and they come in and say, well, now that it's a right, the taxpayers have to pay for it, if you're on Medicaid or whatever. So it was a terrible amendment, which would have changed the state of Florida, made us a tourist destination for abortion from all over the country. spent $100 million, as I said, out-of-state billionaires, even out-of-the-country billionaires, to jam their personal agenda into our Constitution.
Oh, wow.
So the Speaker of the House has no role in that, really. Doesn't have to have a role. But, we raised money into a political committee, and I spent $2 million on Amendment 4 alone of raising and mostly donating, but also raising at least $2 million to stop that, to tell the truth about it. Because they were saying, a total abortion ban, no exception. They were just lying to people to try to jam that in. And I wasn't going to sit back and let it happen. And so I think the question is being asked because all the other candidates, did they show up for the fight? The answer is no. They didn't show up, and they sent a tweet out saying I oppose it, but sending a tweet and actually showing up on the front lines and beating it are two different things. So there's nobody in this race that will go after the left and has the receipts to prove it, go after the left and beat them over and over again than I do, because what some have said is like when I was in leadership in the House, conservatives won every battle. And we're going to continue to win those battles as governor to step on the accelerator for the free state of Florida. And that means keeping these out-of-state folks from putting their personal agenda into our Constitution. The other guys didn't show up. The other candidates in this race did not show up.
It's your Christian values that I think are great here to be governor. America is a Christian country. Yeah, we're freedom of religion, do all that great stuff. But I want a Christian governor. I want a Christian leader. And that's what this country is founded on. But it also goes, I have noticed from, world travels, especially like in South America places or places in Europe that are like very Catholic, it just seems like their moral compass is on a better track. And I think that's so important with the leadership. And I've seen I want to call it a revival in the last couple of years with young men and young women, but they're like on fire for God now. Like I'm seeing it on social media, whether it's, for some likes or whatever, I don't know, but I'd rather see these young people talking about being on fire for God and pushing it and seeing prayer. I even see it when me and the wife go to dinner now. I'll see, some young people praying at their meal, and I'm just like, I never saw that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think having a Christian governor for Florida specifically is super important, especially when it comes to like things like abortion. I know it's always a hot topic in every election, but I'm seeing a lot of change with the younger generation where they're like, hey, I'm not okay with this abortion, especially, like late term abortions and things like that. But having someone in office as a governor at the head of the ship, captain of the ship, to be a Christian values is super important, and a family man. I know you're a family man. You got two, beautiful little kids and a wife, but I think that's so important, and it resonates a lot with families here in Florida.
Well, you look at how the wheels have come off because people have abandoned any belief in God. Transgender surgeries on minors, like that was a good idea. It's child abuse, forcing boys into girls' bathrooms. I mean, some of the stuff that you see on the left, turning the good guys, the cops and the military into bad guys and the bad guys into good guys, they have lost their moral compass completely because they have no faith in God. And I say all the time, if we do not return to faith in God, return to strong families and doing our best to cherish our relationships there with our spouse and our children, and patriotism, returning to a belief. This is a great country. Have we done things that we aren't perfect, or slavery or whatever? Of course. But as a country, there's never been a place ever that's been better for people's human thriving, for people's rights, to keep people safe. The horrible things that happens to kids and women and men across the world, where they don't have those three things, where they don't have the faith, the belief in family, and the patriotic pride in our country. We're celebrating 250 years. What we do in Florida is simply apply those foundational principles. And when I'm governor, we're not going to go backwards. We're going to continue to lead the world when it comes to freedom and a place where you can be safe and thrive and worship and have a great family life and love your country and just make our state even better than it is today.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus is the only answer to fix all this, all the world problems. I mean, you get God involved and it's going to fix it. The only way.
100%.
The only way. I know I'm coming up a little bit on time. You're busy. Appreciate you coming here. It really means a lot to me. But day one, you're governor.
Yeah.
What is it you're going to do?
Man, there's a lot of day one stuff, but that affordability piece, bringing down costs, property taxes, insurance, electric bills, there are things I'll put into place. Start that process from the governor's standpoint immediately, protecting election security, protecting against illegal immigration, bringing in gangs, fentanyl, the cost to our taxpayers and free education, free healthcare, et cetera. All these things. There's a lot of challenges that remain for Florida. I mentioned stopping Sharia law, stopping, Chinese students or anybody that threatens that's an enemy of the United States from taking taxpayer-funded universities. We want to make sure that's there for our Florida residents and keep that and keep our state free. I talked about death penalty. We'll take every step we can as a governor without legislative action on day one. You'll see a lot of a flurry of activity. I believe, as the Federalist Papers say, that energy is the main characteristic of the executive. You got to have a governor who's getting after it. There's a lot of candidates in this race that are going to talk like campaign conservatives. There's only one true believer. There's only one person who's had a lifetime of leadership under pressure and delivered results time and time again. I've got the receipts to prove it. I got one guy claiming my record as his own. So I think at the end of the day, if people have a fair comparison about me and a fair comparison about anybody else in this race, will be the next governor, and I'll be proud to serve and put Florida first. That's what we're campaigning on.
Project Linear, owned by my friend who's a Navy veteran. He makes awesome workout apparel. I know what you're thinking. You're like, you're advertising shorts? Really? I'm telling you, I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in it. These are the best shorts I've ever owned. I've taken them hiking on volcanoes in Costa Rica, down to the hills of Uruguay, and over to Japan. I'll tell you why I like them. My previous shorts, whenever I go hiking, my keys, my cell phone would always slip out the bottom of my shorts. These hold everything in place, and they also have zippered pockets, so I know I'm not going to lose anything. The waistband's very comfortable. The mesh liner is super breathable and comfortable. On your next checkout, use the code THICK30ABROKER. That's with 2 C's to save a discount. I forgot how much the discount is, but you'll save a little bit. Go check them out, Project Linear. Are you the only person running for governor that served in the military?
Well, Jay Collins is in the race right now, and he's served in the military, but the two of us are the only veterans. So if he's not in to qualify, I'll be the only veteran.
I forgot about Jay Collins. I shouldn't have. He's on my mind a lot. I'm actually I'm running campaigns for him right now. $3 a day. I couldn't do $1 a day on Instagram. They had $3 minimum. So I'm actually running campaigns against Jay for $3 a day. So, but I asked Jay, if you want to come on the show, invitation is there. So I'd like him to come on and clear some matters up for me in the state guard. It's unfortunate to have that veteran on veteran crime, but wrong is wrong, and you got to clear it up and everything. But back on you, not on Jay. You could pass one law on day one without the approval of the House. What is it you'd pass?
Well, I'd bring down taxes, for people. I'd address the cost concerns that people have. People are hurting. I mean, really hurting, leaving the state hurting because they can't afford it anymore. So I would do something there on day one. But there's a lot of things that I think need some immediate attention. And so we will have a very productive first session when I'm governor. But all 8 years we'll be leaning in like we did the 2 years that I was speaker. And so you like those 2 years that were a conservative, where conservatives won every battle, just think what it'll be like to have 8 years when I'm governor.
Yeah. Have you announced who lieutenant governor?
No, I mean, that's a decision usually you make after you have the nomination. There's a lot of good folks out there that would make a good governor, and I would look for somebody that I thought was qualified to step into that role. The lieutenant governor has no particular constitutional duties under our system, but it's those given by the governor. And I want a lieutenant governor that was active and was able to get after problems and help me manage the state.
Yeah, the way I look at the lieutenant governor is kind of like team leader, team sergeant. You got to have that strong NCO to kind of like,
right.
Here's my vision. I need you to like
help me
take
execute
on some things like that.
That's right.
So I think the lieutenant governor is, just as important. It's going to help the governor, get his vision across and everything. So I know we're coming up here on time. Man, I really wish I had you for longer. I know you're a busy guy, but what's next for you? Where do you go to next?
Well, we're back in Tallahassee, then we fly to Miami for a couple of days of meetings and events, and then we're all over the state. We've been to Little Lafayette County, and we're going to be in all 67 counties in this state. The response we're getting is fantastic at the ground when people meet me. from who is this guy? I'm voting for this guy. And so we get it everywhere we go, and we know, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here to get to reach your viewers who are engaged, right? They wouldn't be listening to you if they weren't engaged and interested. To check us out on voterenner.com. We'd love to have you as a volunteer. Throw a few dollars in the pot if you'd like. That $3 a month would be great. Have our own campaign. But we appreciate anybody who wants to join our effort. I really know that I'm the guy who's most qualified to be your next governor, who will lean in, who's in it for the right reasons, who will make it happen, beat the left time and time again, and preserve what we love about this great state.
I think if I get anyone to take away something from this podcast, it's your life of service. You're not a career politician. You didn't come in here trying to make money. 23 years of Navy service, prosecutor. I mean, you've lived a life of service, and I hope people really get to see that out of you. Not just some young dude who's like, "Oh, I'm running for office, and I'm going to trade stocks."
Pick me. I'll tell you everything you want to hear, but I can't really get it done.
It'd be easier for you to go home and just hang out with your family.
Correct.
But you're doing it to serve.
It would be easier for
Florida.
sure. There's no question about it. Yeah, I feel that when I'm gone all week and I come home and see them, but they know it's important. We're in it together, my family and I. I got a 5 and a 3-year-old, so this is about them too.
I got a gift for you. Almost forgot, and it's actually for your kiddos too.
Oh, good.
So I told you about the bird photography that we do with for the charity, and actually the bird print behind you will no longer be here this week. It auctioned for one of our veterans that got hurt for $1,500.
That's great.
Out in Texas, but I got you this little beach tote bag.
Nice.
It's one of my little. I actually took this down in Bonita Springs, and I got some extra small shirts in here for your kiddos. A little coffee mug for you. So hopefully, keep it on your governor's desk when you get there. And
some of that special coffee you introduced me to. So
the Savage coffee is great. I'll throw you a bag in here before we get out of here. I got so much of it. And then I also got you a shirt in here as well. So when you become governor, I'd love to see you
You're the best. I'll come
that
back
shirt on and
governor.
everything.
Yeah, I'll come back and do it all over again.
But I got you a couple little shirts in there, and there you go, right there. And Paul, I just want to say thanks for coming on, man.
Jonathan,
really
it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it.
All right, we'll call that a wrap. That was good. Man, I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah,
you're just that kind of guy.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I usually just take video clips of the birds splashing in the water and ospreys flying around. So I bought my first camera, and then I just started taking pictures. And I was like, you know what? I think I'll just print one of these for my home office. That's when I started to get the idea. I was like, you know what? When I ask people to donate to the charities I work with, I'll just give them a print, a way of thank you. This is my way of sharing my happiness in nature. I think everyone has some kind of trauma in their life, especially people coming out of the military. And it was kind of hard for me to find my happiness again. And I always tell people nature is actually where I healed myself. It'll make you happy. And it's just kind of cool to learn, observe how they are. These pelicans, they're very, very intelligent. Whatever bad day you're having, whatever depression, whatever anxiety, doesn't matter with these guys. They don't get out there, they're not going to live. Same thing with us. We just have to get over it, get past our trauma, and move on. It's a hard thing to do, but it's doable. I realized I was too busy as the head broker for the company I was working for. And when I was doing the rescue work during Hurricane Helene, I realized I could not be a good, effective leader because my focus had now shifted to rescue work. So I decided to resign from that position. And it was actually my team that convinced me. They said, hey, we want you to start your own brokerage again, and we will help you run it. I always like to say everyone in my company is a reflection of me. They can all do the same job that I'm doing. So if I have to leave at a moment's notice because a hurricane's coming in, or earthquake, tornado, I can leave knowing full well they got it.